evening, everybody, and welcome to the October 5th, 2017 Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight we are missing one of our members, Mr. Lombard, who had a previous engagement, so it's just me and T. Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, opening comments. T?
Just happened to be perusing a house for sale in Lynn, and at the bottom, actually my wife was, and she said, "Where do you hear this?" The bottom line said, only 1.5 miles from Nahant, and Nahant's Doggy Beach. So when we come to Doggy Beach sometime, I want to bring that up, and we should think about it.
Well, it's on the agenda for tonight, so...
Well, Doggy Beach rules, yeah, good. But I have nothing else.
Okay. I have nothing. Let's move on. The approval of the minutes from... Okay. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of 9/21/17.
So moved.
Second it? I'll second it. For discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ongoing business. Citizens Forum. Do we have any citizens here that want to speak? You guys can speak now. I think I'll put that up now. The kite surfing. Because it's on new business, but since you're here, that's what you're all here for, right? Okay. Whoever's gonna speak, you gonna speak, Dylan? Yeah. Why don't you come up here and make sure that microphone is working.
Oh yeah, it's working. Well, I guess before I speak, the first thing I'd like to understand is what the concern is, because obviously we know that there's been an incident, but we just want to make sure that we're encompassing all your concerns, or what are the concerns at Dog Beach, and just make sure we address all of them.
Okay. I'll give you the concerns that I know of. We've had 3 incidents where the last incident, the girl almost got herself killed. She was in intensive care. Apparently she didn't know what she was doing, and then she almost took somebody out. She almost killed somebody across the street. One of these days, and it happened a couple of years ago too, one of these days, it's gonna go through a car window, and it's gonna kill somebody.
Sure.
So, we can't take a chance. I don't wanna take a chance, because if somebody does, then they're gonna say, what the hell were the selectmen doing? Why didn't they do something about it?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
A long time ago, and it has gotten around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I teach in the city of Boston at night, and there's a young lady that comes here all the time. Mm-hmm. It's all around the whole community. So how do we control it? This is the issue.
Right.
No one wants to hurt anybody.
Yep.
You have to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But we certainly can't take I'm not going to take the approach where someone's going to get hurt and worry about it later. I'm going to be proactive and say, well, we got to do something about it now. So there you have it.
Sure. Okay. All right. So there's a concern. Okay. So as a kite surfer, and I've only lived in Nahant for 4 years. I'm only familiar with 2 incidents. One was 7 years ago. One was recently. There might be a 3rd incident. I'd like to find out about that as well, because the incidents are good learning experiences, and so we like to understand them to make sure we have all the safety concerns in mind. The 2 incidents that I'm familiar with, both of those stemmed from something that I would call reckless kiteboarding. I think kiteboarding can be as safe as any other sport, but there are specific dangers that you have to be aware of, and you have to respect those. And so I think we've, as a kiteboarding community, we're all aware of the safety issues. And we are a very tight-knit community because of that, and we try to address those as soon as they come up. Obviously, it was a big concern for us, this latest incident as well, and it could have been, as you said, much worse than it was. But it's something that was completely avoidable had the person been kiting more responsibly. So, I guess I could go through a little bit of, so take each one of the concerns. So first of all, people getting hurt. Obviously, that's the main concern for the kiteboarders as well, and particularly also bystanders. So that was another thing that was new in this incident, and something that a circumstance that we hadn't had before. And again, I think that stems a lot from the circumstance in that they were, too close to the roadway, too close to the rocks. And that's something that obviously is a concern there. So the first thing I want to mention is just, obviously the other thing that's been brought up before is liability. And liability is always a concern. There are, of course, other risky things at Nahant. We have parks that have, hazards in them. But one of the things that I can say about Dog Beach is that Dog Beach can be an extremely safe place to kite. And in fact, in a lot of circumstances, it's the safest place to kite versus any of the other locations. So one of the concerns I have is that if we...
Stop it 1 second.
Sure.
Why is it safer than any other, short
So a lot of factors, all the beaches every beach has hazards that need to be respected. At any beach, there's water in one direction and land in another. And so the wind directions matter, obstacles matter, people matter, bystanders. So one of the reasons why Dog Beach can be an extremely safe beach is that it has a shallow, flat water area. So it has a tidal shoal. And so the tidal shoal allows people to walk out into the water, get away from all the obstacles before they even fly a kite. And that's the safe way to use Dog Beach. You don't put your kite up right in front of the rocks. What you do is you pump your kite there, you rig it up, you get out in the water, away from obstacles, away from bystanders, and you start kiting out there. So that's why Dog Beach can be very safe. Also, our predominant winds are west winds. And so it's an onshore wind at Dog Beach very often, whereas if folks were to go to Long Beach, it would be an offshore wind. And I deal with this circumstance very often where people are at Long Beach and they say, should I kite Long Beach? And I go, no, you should go over to Dog Beach because it would be safer today because of the onshore wind. And so that, that's the safety of the beach depends on the conditions. Now, of course, Dog Beach has two specific hazards. It has one, which is a rock wall and nearby obstacles such as the road and power lines. And then it also has, because the wind's coming off the land, it has gusty winds. So those are two very important safety hazards that need to be taken into account when you kiteboard there. Kiteboarders take lessons, they learn about all these hazards, they're aware of the hazards. What happens is people start taking shortcuts, and when they take shortcuts, they put themselves and other people in danger. So what we've done to address this so far, because obviously we've got a concern about it as well, is we've published a couple of new rules, amongst us, and we extend those rules out to anyone else that tries to kite at Dog Beach, to basically prevent those kind of things from happening. Specific rules for that site to address the proximity of the roadway as well as the gusty winds. In some cases, people are, used to saying getting near obstacles because they have very, very steady winds, and so they don't see it as a safety concern. But at Dog Beach, sometimes a 40-mile-an-hour gust will come through, and it can loft somebody. So in that case, if you have appropriate safety, like you say at Dog Beach, you can get hundreds of yards away from the beach before even launching a kite. You can be perfectly safe out there because you've got plenty of time to eject. Now notice also the incidents when they happened. The person was able to eject and get themselves under control within 100 feet. They didn't go across the road and then keep going. So the situation ended quickly. So if they were just, 100 yards out further, it wouldn't have been an issue, right? So, and, like I said, 7 years, 2 incidents that I know of. thousands of kiteboarding experiences there every year, I'm sure. And so, yeah, we've had an accident rate. It's not great, but it's avoidable. And I think by just being more careful with our rules, we can avoid those in the future. Now, my suggestion is to allow the community to police itself in that way. I don't think you guys want to get involved in the specific rules, and the specific rules may end up changing based on whatever we see as safety concerns. I don't believe, at least from our previous discussions, that the town wants to get involved in that. If you do, then we of course could do that. We could, I could write up a detailed list of rules and safety rules and guidelines and stuff that I think anyone that kited Dog Beach would be happy to comply with. Anyway, so those are my comments. Any questions on that?
T?
No, that's good.
So, again, if we don't get involved,
Yep.
who's going to take responsibility if somebody gets hurt, somebody gets killed? You? You guys?
Well, ideally, the person.
It's gonna land on the Board of Selectmen. That's the way it's on the town. It's always on the town. So we do have to do that.
Sure.
We have to have something to do with it, and we have to make a ruling on it. Whether it's, I don't know if we can restrict it to Nahant people. I certainly don't want it to get out of control like the dogs have. If there was 3 or 4 people down there, I'm sure that would be fine, but it's not. And you do realize that somebody did go across the fence. The town had to replace the fence because a guy went across and hit the fence and knocked it down.
Yeah.
Chain link fence. That probably left a mark on him, I would assume.
Yep.
Okay? So I think I'm really not comfortable with having, and I'm sure you guys are qualified, but that's why we have police. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's why we have a police department, fire department. Someone's already mentioned that, they think it's great that we're doing ocean rescue in the wintertime because they'll be able to get saved if something happens to them. All this stuff is out in social media, and that reflects on the town. We don't have the resources to hire lifeguards. We don't have the resources really to hire an ocean rescue in the wintertime. I mean, if something happens and they do have to go out, it's usually a bunch of call guys that come in with the regular guys, and then, it takes time for them to get there, especially in the winter. So this is a tough one, and it really is a tough one, and we do have to make the decision. I'm certainly not comfortable letting, and I'm sure you guys are qualified to let you guys, police it, because it's putting too much responsibility on you. I mean, you guys are signing, you're signing something by saying that you're going to police it. I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, so let me address, well, first the liability aspect, right? Okay, so I sent you guys a letter. I'm a legal layman. I just did some searching on, what is the town's responsibility? And, is it realistic for the town to be held accountable or, be held accountable for an incident like this? I was only able to find one case where a kite surfer, and like I said, kite surfing is very popular. It's the fastest growing wind sport in the world right now. I was only, and there are a lot of places that actually have a lot more kiteboarding than we do. If you look at Florida, if you look at North Carolina, and so the only thing I could find then was on the East Coast, anyway, the only thing I could find was a single case in Connecticut that was thrown out as a nuisance lawsuit, and it was about the worst case scenario I could imagine for Nahant. Of course, that when you offer up public lands for recreational activities, that your responsibility is somewhat limited as well, based on Massachusetts law. So yes, I mean, liability is a concern. I would hope that, like in these situations where the person is acting irresponsibly, that the person themselves would be held accountable. And if that person, obviously, it's unfortunate, but if that person were to cause, damage to something or somebody else, that they would be held accountable, and that's just that they'd have some personal liability. Let me address the other concern about, if you want to do something. If we want to do something, then what I'd like to do is something that makes sense for kiteboarders. I think if we do something like try to restrict it in a way that limits when people can go, we might have unintended consequences. Like, for instance, when the conditions are safe at Dog Beach, we might end up forcing people, or not forcing, but if we prevent them from Dog Beach, they may end up going to Long Beach and offshore winds, and we may end up, having more rescues over there, or rescues, or worse, not having a rescue, having someone lost out there. So, if we do end up making some rules, I think we should make some rules that make sense and do increase safety, as opposed to just trying to restrict the access. So, in some of those safety rules, the ones that we've already started to police within our community do restrict the access. I mean, what we basically say is that you are, not allowed to land and launch a kite within 2 hours of high tide at Dog Beach. And that's because the safe area, your buffer zone, as I mentioned, is limited near high tide. So we do support that kind of restriction.
Okay. I want to get the perspective from the fire chief and the police chief on this. I want to hear what they have to say, because they're ultimately going to be the ones that have to do the rescues. And I'd be curious to see these reports, or this lawsuit, this nonsense lawsuit that happened. Was it a kiteboarder that got hurt?
Yeah, there was a kiteboarder who drowned. Okay. And the...
It's a kiteboarder that drowned.
Yes, but the circumstance...
He or she is dead.
Right, but
we're talking about the person that, you see...
Oh, I see, yes.
Twice in the past, kiteboards have gone across Nahant Road into that fence, and the last time, a guy that was just riding his bike, could have been a little baby in the back, in a little baby car seat or something, or, baby seat, and it could have taken... That kite could have went across and done some damage. So the liability lies, in my opinion, with a pedestrian. And pedestrians always come first. So I want to get the perspective from the police chief and the fire chief before I make a decision.
Okay.
Is that satisfactory to you?
It's absolutely satisfactory. And all three selectmen are here,
Right.
and we discuss it
Yeah.
for the final time.
Right. And I hear you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
no one wants to restrict anybody, but
Right.
with social media, again, it's
Yeah.
just out of control.
Well, and as we, I'm happy to come back and discuss it again when we have all three members. And when we get there, I do believe that concern can be addressed. If you want to take what we've presented as community rules and make them Nahant rules that are finable, I would support that as well.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure that the rules that we do put in place make sense and increase safety, and don't unnecessarily restrict access, and which could actually decrease safety. If we were to just say, hey, you can't kiteboard there, I honestly think that could be a danger, because I do think that people will kite at Long Beach in unsafe conditions.
Oh, okay.
I just know people will do that.
Okay, I see what you mean. All right. All right, well, thank you. And again, I appreciate it. I know you, and I know Bob back there and his wife, but
Yep.
I don't know you two guys. But again, I don't feel I feel bad at this, but at the same time, I have to look at
No.
the safety of people
Right.
just going to and fro.
Well, I personally have to look at it as, if we shut down kite surfing at Doggy Beach, they go, like you said, to Long Beach, maybe to the beach, because that's pretty accessible. What happens then if something goes wrong? So it's got to be town-wide, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. We can't restrict them on Long Beach, but Short Beach and all the other beaches we can. We can try. At least we can try. I understand it's a public beach, but for safety concerns,
Why not Long Beach?
because we lease it to the NBC.
Oh, I'm talking Coast Guard Beach, is what I'm talking.
That's Short Beach.
Shot Beach.
Right.
They go right across the street to Shot Beach. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
That's
We can
even more
restrict that.
dangerous.
Yeah,
We can
well, sure, yeah.
restrict that. And they do go out, and they have gone out beyond Egg Rock, and they've gotten in trouble.
Sure, yeah.
And I know that they have, and so
Yep.
it's an issue. So we want to get some input from the fire chief and the police chief, because
Like I said, for kiteboarding, I mean, we support safety. We support safety regulations.
Oh,
We're just
absolutely.
trying to keep access open and we keep safety. So, I mean, if you guys, if we want to come up with a couple of common sense, you know, restrictions and rules, I'm all for it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Dylan.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna table it till the next meeting, and maybe we'll get a report from Chief Dwyer and Chief Feinberg. Okay, the next item on the agenda is quarterly billings. Taxes, water, and sewer, and trash. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so I've read this letter from Kathy Kugis, Sheila, the assistant assessor, and everybody. It's in my opinion right now that we have a committee, technology committee that we've started. And I think that my opinion is until we get that up and rolling, and I want to get the person from Zovrio in, the person that actually supports that system that we have, before we can do that, so that they're comfortable with it, Debbie and Kathy and Sheila, so that it's just a pretty much an automated system, you know, and everything comes out. So I think we need to.
So what you'll see in the report is that what they speak to is the fact this is long overdue and that we have so many benefits that we could derive from this. But it's a very complex set of processes that need to be undertaken. And they also agree that the technology committee would be an excellent addition to this, because it is painstakingly going through and making sure that you are changing all the software programs, maybe doing some upgrades in hardware, et cetera. But then also looking at things like biweekly pay adjustments. You know, just trying to group it all together, glom it all together in such a way that you're getting the maximum benefit. And so it was amazing how enthusiastic all three, the town accountant, treasurer collector, and the assistant assessor, were about this. What they've been reluctant about is the fact that it's going to take some resource investment, and you know, over a 2-year period, they see that we could go from the kind of antiquated system we're in now to a much more sophisticated, responsive system. And I say antiquated lightly because we have a great software program, and it's just not being used to the extent that it can be. So I agree with you, Enzo, in the fact that the technology committee can be of great assistance here.
Okay, so what I've done is I've already talked to Kathy about it, and asked her if she'd like to, you know, I want her to come, I want Debbie to come, of course, and we started that committee, and it's gonna be, Brendan's gonna be on it, because he's on the FinCom, Kenny Carangelo, me, because I'm a technology guy, I love technology. And we're gonna look into, and we're gonna invite there's a woman from the company that does the software, we're gonna invite her to see what we're missing and how we can get this running much smoother, so that it takes a lot of the load off of some of these, some of the things that some of the things that are happening right now.
Agreed.
So that we can go to quarterly billing. It might be easier, and it'll bring a lot more revenue, but it'll give us access to more money quicker.
Yes.
So I will get that. I'll call them this week. I'll set up a meeting, a public meeting, and we'll get that going. Okay. Next is the town administrator's report.
So we have again before us the Verizon license discussion, and Richie is not here tonight. Richie had raised most of the questions regarding the 81-cent pass-through. That's a monthly pass-through that comes to about $10 a year for an increase on the average bill here in town. So what you have here is the packet, and the packet shows the first page is just kind of a summary of what Richie had asked for and the responses of Verizon. Second is the license terms and costs, and then the third is the CATV negotiations and what the money will be used for. So Rich and I talked today, and Richie said that he's comfortable with the situation now, and that he does believe that the 81 cents is acceptable for an increase in pass-through. And that's the only element that we can negotiate as part of the license. Everything else is regulated by the federal government.
Okay, the only, and you know, I was okay with it at first, but then I started doing the math. If you take those 763 people that have subscribed to Verizon and multiply that times 81, it comes up to $618 a month. And if you multiply that times 12, it comes up to $7,400. And if you multiply it by the 10-year contract, that's $74,000. That stuff, none of this equipment costs $74,000, and that's the excuse they use to raise the rate, 81 cents.
Well, there are two things. The first thing is that the 81 cents is what we asked them for. The other rate increases that Richie was looking for, limitations on, those are just market increases, so those are much more complex, and again, those are regulated by the federal government. If you look on the third page identifies that they're overall, over a 10-year period, $238,000 worth of increases and what they're for. Then you'll also look down to see at the bottom Comcast and Verizon. They'll actually split the costs of about $119,000 apiece because they share the market, and they're generally it's a split in the number of providers that they have here. And so these are the real numbers that we had asked for, and what they represent is the bare minimum. And that's why when talking before, Rich and I were going back and forth about the fact that 81 cents is as low as we can get while maintaining that and the service that we're providing. So
It's cheaper for us to buy our own equipment.
but they're obligated to provide us CATV studios.
Right. But I still don't understand how we rent space to them and we have to pay them a fee. I don't understand that. And they're gonna go up 81 cents, and that's $74,000. And plus their rates go up, their regular rates go up.
So
I
let's
mean, my cable bill is, I don't even bother to look at it anymore.
So if they go up $10, let's say, I'm just using a round number. If they go up $10 and per month, and we have 81 cents of that, the rest of the difference between the 10 and the 81 cents is all market driven. And the federal government allows them to drive that. And the only thing that keeps them in check is the fact that they have competition between Comcast and Verizon. So one of the elements that Verizon had said is that if the town is concerned with the costs of Verizon, this is a small market for them, they'd be willing to leave the market. But then you get rid of the competition between Comcast and Verizon. And then you end up with a monopoly where you end up with Comcast being able to charge whatever they can in this, whatever they want to in this market.
Is there any other cable providers out there in this area?
These are the two major. I'm not sure what lesser companies there are out there, but I'm sure there are others. But this is all a federally regulated process where we get the local license, but then there's a federal license. And so they have come into the market, and it's not an easy thing to do to come into the market because, again, it's so heavily restricted. So the numbers are all there. They're what we're asking for, and we tried to keep them at the bare minimum. And so what you have here is basically that, and...
Who asked for this, you?
Yes.
You asked for the 81 cents?
Yep. And it's represented here by taking what we have and then perpetuating it over 10 years. So when you amortize the equipment and then you pay for the staff that's needed, you end up, and any legal costs, you end up with the $238.04 over the 10-year period.
So in 10 years, it'll pay for the $74,000, pay for paid row and the equipment.
Yeah, and as the equipment needs to be replaced, we'll have the money in the account to do so. And they'll also pay for some of the legal costs that we incur in going through this license process.
And that's how he gets paid?
Correct. There's a separate account for that. And so about, I'd say, 15, 16 years ago, Comcast and Verizon came out of the business of providing studios, and they're required by the federal government to provide each community a studio. And so what they were doing is they were actually providing a studio that they manned, they paid for. They said they want to get out of the business, so they started giving these funds to each community to do your own, if you will. And so each community is setting up systems like that, and if you go from community to community, they all have something like this, and that's what's negotiated as part of this. Some communities have a more elaborate and robust CATV program. They do videos throughout town. They have people who video parades and everything else. So in those situations, their monies are much higher than this. We're at the extreme low end of the spectrum when it comes to cost increases or pass-throughs.
Okay.
And this has been in discussion for almost 3 months now.
Right.
And I hate to have Verizon sit out there and, feel kind of unwanted.
I don't think they feel unwanted. They charge plenty of money. They're collecting plenty of money from us. Are you happy with it?
I'd like to put this to bed at the next meeting. I want to hear why Richie is now okay with it,
Okay,
his concerns.
okay. All right. I'm okay with it, because as long as it's paying for that, and I understand that it's paying for Pedro and for the equipment, I would like to see the school get some equipment out of it if they're willing to do something, both Comcast and Verizon, if they're willing to kick in some money to them. But
Yeah.
other than that, I guess,
We have in here some minor costs for a broadcast playback studio, and that was being discussed with the school as something as their curriculum comes around, to actually have in the library area, kind of a small little studio with portable equipment that the kids could use to do little programming.
and they'll fund it?
And it's funded in here.
Okay.
Yep.
You wanna just, I don't mind voting on it
No,
tonight.
this is a good explanation, but, I mean, that's, yeah, I'll do it. I just want to know how that was okay with you, so it's okay. Is it because of the breakdown?
Yeah, and also, he had asked for some considerations of Verizon, and Verizon had talked to me. I sent him the information, and unfortunately, they're regulated in such a way that they can't offer what he's requesting.
Because this is a good breakdown.
Yeah,
Right,
it's a good
yes.
breakdown.
It's, and I'm happy with the fact that there's something in there for the school, and, it takes care of Pedro and some of the equipment, and,
Yep.
all right.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to execute the 10-year license with Verizon.
I'll second that for discussion. Discussion.
None.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Great. You also have an appointment of Daniel Sullivan as a call firefighter. The fire chief and the fire department recently went through a review of 7 candidates, and Dan Sullivan was the one who came out as the only viable candidate that was willing to take the position as on the terms that were offered. So we now bring him forward as a candidate for appointment.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the town administrator's appointment of Daniel Sullivan as call firefighter upon the recommendation of Chief Feinberg.
I'll second it for discussion. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Congratulations, Dan. Then we have 3 kind of rapid use request forms, and you have votes on those. The first is the Christmas tree sales from 11/25 to 12/17, and that's at the Lowlands.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for PTO Christmas tree sales, 11/25/17 to 12/17/17 at Lowlands.
I'll second that for discussion.
It's a great job. They do a great job.
Yeah,
Really do.
I encourage everybody to buy a tree. They get on there and they work hard. And it's actually a great thing. It raises a lot of money for them. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Next item, we have the PTO Halloween Bash. This is a annual event. It's in the soccer fields.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request from PTO for Halloween Bash at Flash Road Soccer Fields, 10/21/17 from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, I'll second that for discussion. Discussion?
None.
Hearing none, it's a lot of fun. Hearing none, all those, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Last item is a soccer clinic, and that's also at the Flash Road facility.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the event request for soccer clinics at Flash Road Soccer Fields from 9/1/17 to 11/14/17.
Okay, I'll second that for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's all I have for you for the town administrator report.
Old business, any old business? Okay,
No.
new business. Okay, we received a petition to reduce the speed limit on Castle Road. My concern is that, I gotta find it here amongst everything I have.
It should be the first item on 5.
No, I know, I have the petition here, though.
Right here.
Okay, but it's stamped, okay, you get a better stamp there, September 14th. It's almost been a month, and I can understand their frustration. I don't understand why we're just seeing this now. When these people wrote this petition in August.
The police department has been working with the neighborhood to implement kind of a sweep, if you will, through the area. So you've seen the reader boards, you've seen the presence of the cops increased. They've written significant tickets in the area. So a lot of it was to test the report that Bob Dwyer has provided us. And he makes recommendations in there, but in the first part of the report, he identifies what they've been doing over this period of time. And he's been speaking with the neighborhood, and they're very pleased with the effects of their recommendations. And this is Chief Dwyer's approach. He's a very much hands-on person, and he likes to work directly with the neighborhood, and it's yielded a great product here.
Again, this is September 28th. And this is the first I've heard of it. The first I've heard of, you know, a petition or, and every single person on Castle Road has signed it. I mean, I'm looking at it, and it started in August. Not one of them came to me, I can tell you that. Christian Howard did. Christian Howard had mentioned something to me about how he almost got hit. And it tore his shirt or something. Somebody went by so fast. It's a concern. What concerns me the most is the fact that there was a complaint, and it went to that office, our office, and we never saw it. So we need to tighten up on that. We need to see this stuff right away. Board of Selectmen needs to see it.
Certainly,
And
certainly.
in his letter, he says that he doesn't need to be discussed at a selectmen's meeting. I don't agree with that. It does need to be discussed at a selectmen's meeting, because that's why they elect us. And they are working to slow people down. He writes speed bumps are out of the question. Of course they are. You can't put speed bumps on a road. The current speed limit is 25 miles an hour until you hit Phillips Road, where it drops down to 20 miles an hour. If you drop the speed limit, I mean, even 25, 20, they need to be there. There needs to be a presence. There needs to be speed traps constantly there where they can bag people, and eventually they're gonna stop. Okay? Now, he says he has limited resources. He's just gonna have to find some and get them out there to, somehow, and get them out there to have the speed traps at certain parts of the day when people are speeding down there. Would you agree?
That road, I've been on Council Road now for, well, many, many years. That road is just a speedway. And this is, I applaud those people. I wish they had come to us up here, but that's fine. I also have input from people before this on Fox Hill Road, my good old Fox Hill Road people, because they take the corner by Christian Howard's house and they fly up that hill, sometimes going right through the stop sign. That maybe we can ask the chief about that too. But I think what they're doing will help the whole area, but it has to continue.
Right.
That is, and another road where I live is Flash Road. The police have done a great job. They're down there constantly. Every once in a while, when the police aren't there, you'll hear someone just go, like it's the Indianapolis Speedway. I know you have to catch them, but at least they're trying there. It's nice to see them, and I like seeing the signs. Again, I would like to be informed right away.
Yeah, that's the most important, we need to be informed right away. I mean, there's no excuse for, August,
Well, September 4th, I'm guessing, is when they dropped it off.
Yeah, and again, the chief has been working with them throughout.
but it's a month, and we need to know this stuff right away.
Certainly.
I expect it, so, when it comes into that office, I expect it to be copied on it immediately. So, and I'm glad that they're taking I saw the signs up there tonight, and I will reach out to some of these people, some of them I know, and, I'm just gonna ask them, if things are going good.
So what do you think of the chief's recommendations? If you look at the lower recommended changes, the latter half of the letter, he talks about reducing the speed limit coming off of the causeway from 35 to 25, reducing the speed for the entire length of Castle Road from 25 to 20, posting signs and, a series of signs. And
It's fine. Listen, I recommended that 2 months ago, and I was told that it wasn't gonna be adequate. I said, why, the speed limit, I clocked it, how long it's gonna take you to get from the end of the causeway, where the bank is, to 40 steps. If you reduce the speed limit to 25, the whole length,
Yep.
it's gonna take you approximately 30 seconds longer to get to the end. And, people kept saying, well, we're cramping them, you can't go any faster. It's like, come on. You're talking about 10 miles an hour, but it's the stretch of road isn't long enough where it's only 30 seconds.
And you also have Irish Town, and you also have the Richdales, where they're just dangerous places. You've got to slow down.
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree that it should be lowered. I had recommended it, and I'm glad that he, and
Do you want to go with these recommendations?
Yeah, I also would like to see Fox Hill Road at 20 miles an hour. So that whole area there, that would make this is the lower end where you come off of Castle.
Yep.
Because they take that corner and then, poof,
So not the full length of Fox Hill from the hill?
Well, even the
from
full
hill
length,
down?
because
Full length, yeah.
especially during Little League season,
Yeah,
because they're out-of-towners.
yeah.
I'm not saying they're the wrong ones, but they have to fly to get to the game, so.
And if you're heading towards Flash Road, once you crest that hill, it's very densely populated.
And you have to go slow.
You have to go slow.
And
but
I know people are.
Yeah.
But once you, just to the top of the hill, I think, and if they could post some signs there that make it 20,
Okay, okay.
please.
Fox Hill?
Yeah.
So if you could just take a vote to that and then accept the chief's recommendations here, what I'll do is I'll put this into the minutes so that it's legitimate. You don't have to read it
I'll entertain a
specifically.
motion that we accept the chief's recommendation for the speed limit, and you wanna
Add Fox Hill
add
Road.
Fox Hill Road to 20 miles an hour.
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Motion
Thank
carries.
you.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
Some of these next items, I'm not sure, I think they originated from Ritchie, and so
Yes.
I'm not sure if either of you know anything about them.
Well, the town vehicles, town-owned vehicles, and I wanted to bring this up, we need to have a policy in place for town-owned vehicles. The fire chief's car, the police chief's car, any vehicle that's owned by the town, not only for the green community stuff, because that's gonna be part of it, but for our own benefit. Contractually, I understand how that works, but their contracts are coming up, and I wanna make some changes in there, with town-owned vehicles. And they can either accept it or they don't have to accept it, but I have some ideas. I don't think we're ready to do that yet, but,
No, the contracts are, we've got another 2 years,
yeah.
so, I'll go ahead and flag those so that when we get to that point, we'll
Okay.
talk about those.
Okay, the next one is, the winter parking tickets, policy and procedure. It's basically winter parking. I wanna put this off, because the winter parking, I would like to revise the winter parking rules. I'd like to get some more information
Sure.
on that. So I wanna table that till the next meeting,
Yes.
winter parking rules.
Right.
Okay, now,
You have the current ones in your binder, so.
yeah, I know, it's
Take
right
those,
here.
yeah,
I got it.
exactly.
And I actually have it on my computer at home.
Right, we do.
Okay. Public Works, lawn cutting.
So the question there was, Rich was saying he had heard that we were seeking bids for lawn cutting for some of the major facilities. And what I told him is that at his request, we were looking to find a way to resolve the goose droppings. And we were having trouble ourselves doing it. So what we were asking is lawn care companies, if they had another process that would be more effective in collecting goose droppings. But to Dennis's benefit, or credit, what he did is he modified the approach using our equipment, and we're at about 90% capture of getting the goose droppings up. And so what Dennis and I have agreed to is that we're gonna be more conscientious about the conditions in which we collect the goose droppings and how frequently we do it. And it's made a remarkable difference.
Okay.
I mean, the geese are the geese, and I don't know if we're ever gonna have a world without geese.
Over here, I mean,
And,
Okay.
and quite frankly, the geese are part of the golf course. When you're golfing, I understand where Richie and the golfers are coming from, because I did it for years down there. But, I mean,
they go over my house every night.
yeah, and they do the baseball fields, and then I go down there with my dog and we chase them around, and then they take off and come back someplace else, so.
Okay. Next on the agenda is dog beach rules. Well, actually, we're gonna go to the open position for the Public Works next, because Dennis is here. So
Dennis is
I'd like
here,
to get Dennis going. If you, come on up.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Sure, absolutely.
So,
Well,
There's an open position at the Public Works.
yes, there was an open position. Last year, we had an employee leave the department back in June of 16. Due to budget constraints last year, because budget was extremely stressed, we didn't fill the position, to our detriment. What ended up happening at that point was that open position became non-open because it was not funded at last town meeting. So I'm sitting here in need of some help on various fronts, and I don't have the funds to fill that spot.
Okay. We can't do a reserve fund, you can't do a reserve fund transfer for salaries.
no.
So we are in a bit of a pickle with this, but my feeling is you need another guy there. You have to have another guy, so somehow we're gonna have to find out how to do that. It's low, you don't have anybody there, I mean, you don't have, how are you making out with the CDLs? These guys, under their contracts, have to have CDL licenses.
As far as I know, the three that were contracted to have CDLs are in compliance. There are two folks that were hired based upon other skills. One was a mason, the other one was a plumber. And I don't believe they were hired specifically for CDL skills.
Their contracts all say that they have to have CDLs.
I think there's hoisting licenses that they're missing, the two of them are.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So they need to get them. It's in their contract, they have to have them. So I'd like to see them focused in on that.
So
Does
Dennis,
anybody else in the Nahant have to have CDL licenses? Because I have a friend that's a DPW director in Natick. And what they do is if they have a bunch of guys come in that need it, they'll have them all tested the same day. They'll have the registry come down and do the test right there. I mean, that's another way that you guys can set something up where you get 4 or 5 guys, call the registry up. They'll actually come down and I think and do it right there in the parking lot. That might be a good idea. But how do we find some money for him to hire somebody? I mean, right now we don't have the money, correct?
Correct, and as you understand, we can't post a position without dedicated funding, and dedicated means beyond this current year. And then you also have an understanding with the Finance Committee, because that was the agreement at the budget development process. And so that should be a discussion between the Selectmen and the...
Right, and I will speak with them about it. We're gonna, we did have an agreement with them, and I'm gonna have to, I'm a man of my word, so I'll talk to them first and see how we can fund it.
And Dennis, maybe you can speak to your need. Is it that you need a position, or do you need a varied resource?
Re-ask the question. I'm getting an echo, Jeff.
Is a body what you need, or do you need varied resource? By that I mean different skill sets.
Boy, my thought process is yes, I need the resource, not just a body in particular. We lost a mechanic. We lost the mechanic for the town in that position. We've since rearranged the staff where we backfilled that position. We have a mechanic. The next hire has to have a skill level. They have to bring a skill to the table to the benefit, that will only benefit us as an operating entity.
Right.
Don't know what that skill is at this point. I'd like to have either carpenter skill or somebody that can from add value to the business. Okay.
But I guess the question that I have more is, are we talking a body? Is it a body that's needed, or are we talking some other alternatives?
It's a difficult question. I'm saying yes. The simple answer is yes. All right, from a body standpoint, I need the body. All right, in order for us to self-perform other, projects within the town. Right now, we're in a position of subbing a lot of work out, and it's purely because I don't have the manpower, I don't have the skill ability to do that. I have to reallocate on a daily basis. All right, we're being pulled in many different directions here.
Well, you have Western Sampson that does the sewer pumps.
Yes.
You have Christopher doing he's ripping apart a truck today. I saw him down there.
Right, it's all pulled apart. Yeah.
I mean, other than they cut grass, what other?
Everything and anything that you can think of, this department has to perform. Right. The simple to the mundane. That's as simple as I can put it.
But if you were to assess your skill set, your resource, and how it's being utilized, are you seeing that because you have positions that were hired for specific skill sets?
Correct.
Are they being utilized for that? Or is there an underutilization?
There's an underutilization for sure. All right. We need to circle back and see whether or not we can create a different model to better get a little bit better utilization out of the skill set that we have now. Again, that being said, again, we're being pulled in 15 different directions. So if the guy was hired as a plumber, he's not working on plumbing activities all day long.
Right.
He's not being assigned to plumbing activities all day long.
No, I know.
He's doing multiple tasks. We're doing the everyday tasks that are expected, plus whatever other events occur that we can't, think about.
So would it be beneficial for you to give us a sense of how options for?
Oh, absolutely. It's incumbent upon me as a manager, right, to sit down and put together a couple of scenarios for the Board of Selectmen and obviously the manager of the town. And we can play around with it a little bit, not play around with it, that's a poor choice of words, but we'll manage it to the benefit of the townsfolk.
Okay, so, I think if you figure out what you need, and then, you know, when the budget season comes up, which is coming up, and the FinCom, and, you know, we can work something out with them, see how they feel. I mean, I take what they say very seriously, because they do a great job. I mean, the Finance Committee is really, does a great job, so. So I think, at this point, we know what you need, huh?
If I may,
Sure.
I would like to see the chairman speak to the Finance Committee as soon as possible, because the agreement made was not voted on by the Board of Selectmen. I am 100% against them taking the Public Works person out.
No, we didn't.
And,
He's not
no,
telling me.
I did not make an agreement. I did not participate in a vote to acquiesce to the FinCom. I wanted the Public Works person in there, plus the person that works over there. Kim.
Yeah,
And you're just mentioning that there was you're a man of your word, and you said to them that you wouldn't go back on it.
Well-
They arbitrarily took the money for the Public Works person. I want to see that Public Works person put back, and I believe that's why this is here. We need another Public Works person.
okay.
And
It was agreed, upon.
Was agreed upon, yeah.
it wasn't agreed upon by me.
It might not have been, you know, I think,
I know for sure, because I would
Well-
remember that.
right. But I think you went along with it. I think everybody went along with it for now,
Yep.
for that time.
And the budget process is about a month and a half off, so, the beginning of the discussion. So if Dennis were to do his homework and bring it forward, that could be part of the discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
But to have 3 guys or 4 guys or 5 guys go along with it, there was no vote taken, or I would have voted no. That's all I'm saying. We need the Public Works person, period.
Okay, I don't believe, I'll look back on the minutes, I think we did vote on it. But, and you probably voted no.
There was a town meeting.
That was
It
a
was a
town
town
meeting,
meeting.
that was
Town
before
meeting
town
discussion.
meeting. So,
Okay.
I think we're all set.
I'll say.
thank you, Dennis.
All right, thank you.
Okay, couple of other things I want to talk about. The fire assessment, fire building assessment.
Yep.
We spent how much, $15,000
No more.
on the assessment?
The funding was 15,000, yeah.
Okay.
There were 2, though. 2 separate assessments.
Well, there are 2 assessments, but they were broken up to.
Total
for the
15?
total of
Okay.
15, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so, and we've gotten nowhere with it. Now, there is a formula for doing this. It's right online. Are you aware of it?
Yeah, and what we traditionally do is that we hire a design consultant that walks us through that formula. And what the chief and some of the firefighters have been doing is talking to different fire companies that have gone through this formula process. But yeah, it's quite specific, and that's why we usually end up hiring a consultant.
That's not how I understood it. I heard that, I hear that it just went nowhere. So we need to work on that. We need to get them some, look, they're gonna get a brand new fire engine in September. And you can't leave it outside.
Yep.
So they've worked hard on that, and, you know, Austin and a couple of the other guys down there have worked to get that funding through Mark, and they were supposed to have that committee. And I went to a couple of the meetings, and they were ridiculous because they went nowhere. And to me, it was just a waste of money. The design company wasted our money, and I'm not happy with that, because we're no further ahead of the game were when we started. So we need to sit down with them, the firemen, and figure out how we're gonna do this, and how we're gonna fund it. To either blow out a wall and, you know, so the fire engine will fit, and then put something in the back, but we gotta do something for them.
One of our last meetings, they were scheduled to join us, and they had backed out because they felt that they needed to kind of get their heads around this themselves. And so they're meeting now, and what they plan on doing is coming to one of our next meetings, and they will have just this conversation. But what they first wanted to understand is kind of their bare minimum. What they would come to you and say that this is our bare minimum, do we need to, can we add anything more to it? But that's exactly what this committee is talking about now, is the fact the truck is coming. It's a great grant, however, you gotta house it.
Okay, now, the other thing is the fire truck committee. I'm reading it right here. To purchase to be made through, and this is the background, purchase to be made through a group purchasing plan. I would hope that the chief is listening to them, and that he's not gonna make a unilateral decision on his own and buy what he wants, since we had one guy that was the one that wrote the grant. I would hope that he's gonna, you know, abide by these rules.
What you're reading there is a report from a committee that he had asked to come together. And so, yes, obviously, the committee is doing all their painstaking homework to get to that level of detail. And I don't think the chief necessarily cares about certain things other than the fact that it serves its purpose, that it fits in within the resource. You know, we don't want to have a truck that's too big for the building, et cetera, et cetera. So I think he's relying heavily upon this committee to give him the specifics.
Well, I don't think, I mean, it's an engine, it's not a ladder truck, so it's an engine, so if it's another foot's another foot. We already know that we have to, I mean, I don't want to use that as an excuse, okay? I want him to listen to these guys. And if these guys want that engine, a specific engine, it's because they've done their homework. Austin certainly did his homework. He's the one that got the engine for the town, so he has a lot to say about that, and he should.
Yeah, and I have no reason to believe that that won't happen.
So, and I'm gonna watch that. I can tell you right now, I'm gonna watch it like a hawk, because I absolutely do not want $500,000 grants don't come around very often.
Agreed.
He worked very hard for it.
Agreed.
Okay, and I want him and his committee to be treated fairly on this. And I want them to get what they want, because ultimately they're the ones that are gonna drive it. They're the ones that are gonna use it, they're the ones that know the engine. Because they've done a ton of background checks on it. I can tell you that other one that we have, the Silver Fox, the one that Chief Fox bought, it broke down. It had to be towed back to the fire station. I had to order a computer for it myself. This is going back 5 years now, from Wisconsin.
Yep.
And I had to have it overnighted. We had no fire engine. And, you know, these guys have done their homework. I mean, Austin's done it. It's being said that, you know, it's a local company. They've been in business for 125 years, and it's accessible. They're not that far away. They're not in Wisconsin. So, you know, I would hope that he would listen to them, and believe me, I'm gonna be watching this, because I'm not gonna, $500,000 is a lot of money, and we're gonna buy the one that they want. I think that's only fair.
Well, I would agree in the fact that we need to buy the one that's appropriate for the town. So, and I believe that the chief will do exactly what is in the best interest of the town.
Okay. Doggy beach rules, we're gonna wait, wanna wait on that?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want us to work on some drafts or something? Because you want us to work on some draft rules or?
For Dog Beach?
Yeah.
Well, Dog Beach, first of all, it was never accepted at town meeting, okay? So far, we haven't found it yet. The town clerk has found one item that pertains to it, but it was never really accepted the proper way. So, but the intention was that Dog Beach be for Nahant residents. So how do we achieve that? Now, I know Dan has said that it's a public beach, and Bobby Dwyer said it's a public beach, and we can't restrict people. No, we can't. You can't restrict people, but you can certainly restrict dogs. Dogs are not human, and so I think it's important that people understand that, no, this is not, Dog Beach is only for Nahant residents.
I
Okay?
agree.
So, we'll have to work on that one. We have time because, it's kind of gone by, right now.
Any other thoughts on that? Anything you can provide us for kind of guidance, we can start to roll stuff together.
Well, I'd like to see the way it was in the original intention. I mean, I don't want to deny people from the hunt if that's what they want, but we have to somehow come up with a plan to strictly have them for the hunt people. And I also want to accommodate the people that live on Castle Road. They don't want dogs in their yards, period. And that's the way it was supposed to be. There was going to be a fence. There was going to be actually an area where they could let the dogs off the leash going forward towards Lynn. And there was to take, but now they let them off right away. So,
No.
okay. So now, we'll table that to the next meeting.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, and let me work on some of this to see if I can give some draft to
Right.
it.
Right.
Okay, great.
The wharf. I want to talk about the wharf a little bit. I want a detailed timeline on that.
Yep.
I want to know when they're coming, the day they're coming, because I sent out emails to you back last year, and I was promised that was going to get done. I was weekly saying, when are they going to finish? When are they going to finish? And I was promised it was going to be done. And now we are at where we're at, and it's not done. Secondly, I'll say this again, the Lieutenant Governor, great Lieutenant Governor, decided to do a photo op here,
Yep.
okay? And for what reason, I don't know, because she had nothing to do with the wharf grant, okay? It was Tommy McGee and Richie and Mark, and it was a long time ago they got that grant. So, that's fine. I want you to reach out to her and ask her to get that straightened out at 40 steps. I want 40 steps straightened out because, number one, we're not doing anything illegal. Number two, it's because somebody in DEP just is hell-bent on giving us a hard time over it, okay? They can document it as beach nourishment, whatever they want, but you know something? CZM, Coastal Zone Management, recommended that they do the project at Northeastern the way they did it. And what we wound up was with egg rock nourishment, because it was gone within 40 seconds. All right, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know the area. That's why we have Dan Coughlin, who knows the area. That's why we put the Jersey barriers here. They've held up for this many years. I think they were put in there in '78. We can't find the documentation, but I can tell you right now, if we don't prevent that, and if we don't shore that whole area up, you're gonna have real beach nourishment. You're gonna have the whole road on 40 Steps Beach at some point.
Agreed.
So, and I don't care what this person at DEP says, they're dead wrong, okay? And it's gonna cost the town too much money, we'll lose the grant, and I expect the Lieutenant Governor, I want an answer from her. Otherwise, I'm gonna call her myself.
So we have hired an environmental attorney to help navigate us through
know
this.
that.
And so what he's recommending is that we go for a variance. And that the variance is an easier political maneuver, because once you get into the variance world, all it is, it takes the politics to kind of grease the tracks and you go through it. So what he's trying to do is position this in such a way that it's easier for the politicians to help us. In the position it's in now, it's very, very difficult because you're talking a kind of a technical war, a war of regulations. And, DEP and FEMA kind of have regulations on their side. But in a variance, it's much easier. So Richard Nyland, who is the guy that we're working with, he is, again, positioning it for the variance and working with Dan Coughlin and myself and Dennis. And we think that's probably going to be the best and easiest alternative. The issue we're looking at now is making sure that FEMA is comfortable with the timeline so that we don't end up outside the grant and lose the grant, and that's where the lieutenant governor really may be able to.
All right, well, this is DEP's issue, okay? And
Yep.
DEP, I can tell you right now, they're not, you know, again, they're not always right, okay? I've seen them wrong in several instances, and as far as the coastal zone management, they have an advisory board, and that's all they are. They have no real power. This woman, I talked to the woman that's in charge of this case, and I don't know why she's doing it, but you know something, she's doing it. And if anybody's out there, I urge you to write them a letter. Call them up, because, again, it's a simple project where we're gonna just put a revetment on. And there's ways that we can nourish the beach for them. We can show them in different ways that we can pump sand down there when they want. But you know something? There's no sand there to begin with. There's nothing there. It's all rocks. So I don't know where they're coming from, so whatever. But you know something? I expect her to do something. She can take a photo up here. I want her to do something for us now.
So one of these next meetings, I'll have a discussion kind of loaded up with Dan Coughlin about the variance concept, and then how that will allow the politicians to step in and help us. So we don't want to do is just say help, and then have them out there bumping around, because they want to be as efficient and as effective as
Right,
possible.
this is what we want to do, this is where we
Exactly.
need to
So
help.
this piece, this piece, this piece. Yeah, exactly. So I'll load that for a conversation
Sounds
at one of
good.
the next meetings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we want to do the executive session this round, or you had mentioned something about doing it
Well,
the next
contract, what the
union?
union contracts? Well,
Let's
we
do
don't have
that
Richie
next
here.
session.
We'll do it the next session.
Yeah, with all three of us here.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Closing announcements, okay, Monday, Town Hall will be closed, October 9th, it's Columbus Day. Hazardous Waste Collection Day is Saturday, October 21st, at the Lynn DPW at 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Coffee with a Cop is October 7th at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Dunkin' Donuts. So if you want to go down and have coffee with a police officer, by all means, go ahead and do it. I think I might.
It's Officer Manley, so,
Oh, okay, apologize
Yeah.
for that.
He'll be fine,
And swim, Short Beach Cleanup, Saturday, October 14th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I got an email from Vi Paddock on this. I think it's a great idea because it's new. She's adding this now because there is again, you know, the ocean's relentless. It'll spit all kinds of stuff up, that, you know, television sets and shoes and plastic and all kinds of stuff. And she's being very proactive by having people come out and clean it up, and I will be there. I hope everybody else comes down. It's actually a pretty good day. And then boat hauling is 10-7 and 10-9. Jocelyn Marine is, and their telephone number is 978-462-9717, in case anybody's interested, to get your boat hauled. And I think that's it.
yeah, and all this information can be found on the town webpage, so if you go into just the heading up front, it has all these listed, so any of the information
good.
that you may have missed, you can find there.
Okay, now,
Thank you.
one other bit of information. There's been some questions about the FEMA maps. And I know that nobody's listening because the Patriots are on, but for you people that are, I am gonna have Robert, our IT guy, load onto our website how to find your firm, which is your map, basically, where your house is, okay? And how to make a firmette. It's basically, you're gonna have to go, it's gonna instruct you to go to the msc.fema.gov, and it'll show you how to, for me to go through this now would be crazy, but it's gonna show you how to go through step 1, step 2, step 3, how to find your house on the map. And it's pretty easy, you know. We had a meeting about this, and I want people to look at this. I'm gonna have it on our website, because the map that's on our website is good, and you can blow it up, and you can see your home, but this will be better. You'll be able to see this on FEMA's actual website. Now, I know Sheila's asked for the she wants to put put it on the GIS. And through a CD, or a disc. I have a disc from Woods Hole Group, but the disc is it's their work map. It's not what's accepted is the map that you actually see on our website. But their maps, FEMA's maps, are gonna be a little bit, not different, they're gonna be the same, but you can actually pinpoint your house through this. It's great, and you know something? I don't know how he's gonna do it, but Peggy told me that she would scan it tomorrow and give it to Robert to put on our website. It's pretty basic, and then we can, the girls in the office should refer, if they call, the people to this website, or they can call me. I mean, a lot of people do call me, but a lot of people don't, so, because you wanna make them happy, you want them to know where they stand with it. And quite a few people have already come out, out of the flood map, out of the flood zones, so, which is good, it worked, so I'm happy. And we're happy. But this will show you if you haven't, if you have or you haven't, or if you've been lowered or whatever. And some people have gotten letters. Your bank should be calling you and letting you know if you're out, or sending you a letter. And if you need to call them, you should always ask for their compliance officer, flood compliance officer. Remember that. That's very important. So this is going to go on our website, and it should make things a lot easier for people.
Agreed.
And FIRM stands for Flood Insurance Rate Map, in case anybody doesn't know. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. We are adjourned.
Good meeting.
We're done, Pedro.